The lunch rush at Millie's diner was in full swing. The bell above the door jingled as a man in his early 30s walked in, brushing rain off his coat. Jack Anderson scanned the room, his sharp eyes taking in the checkered floors and faded red booths. The warm, bustling atmosphere was a stark contrast to the sterile silence of the high-end restaurants he usually frequented. Adjusting his tie, he hesitated before sliding into a corner booth. Behind the counter, Lucy was juggling orders with practiced ease. Her friendly smile and quick wit kept customers coming back despite her visible fatigue. Spotting the new face, she grabbed a menu and approached the booth. "Welcome to Millie's," she said cheerfully. "What can I get you?" Jack glanced at the menu but looked uncomfortable. Just a water, please." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Just water? Not even a slice of pie to go with it?" He hesitated, then sighed. "I lost my wallet. Guess today's not my lucky day." Emma studied him for a moment, noticing his neat suit but scuffed shoes. With a shrug and a smile, she said, "Don't worry about it. Lunch is on me today." Jack blinked, caught off guard. "You don't have to do that. I can—" "Everyone has bad days," she interrupted, waving off his protests. "Besides, it's just a sandwich." The world could use a little more kindness, right? For a moment, Jack just stared at her. In his world, nothing came without strings attached. Yet here was this waitress offering him a meal with no expectations. "Well," he said slowly, "thank you. I'll have the turkey club then." As Emma walked back to place his order, Jack leaned back in his seat, an unfamiliar warmth spreading through him. Minutes later, she returned with his sandwich and a glass of water. "Here you go. Enjoy." "Thanks," he said, glancing at her name tag. "Emma, right?" "That's me," she replied, heading off to the next table. Jack ate slowly, his thoughts drifting. He'd come to this diner on a whim, hoping for a moment of normalcy in a life that often felt anything but. Now he found himself watching Emma as she moved between tables, her smile unwavering despite the demands of the job. When he finished, he stood and approached the counter. Emma was ringing up another customer but turned to him as he approached. "That was great," he said, slipping his hands into his pockets. "I owe you one." Emma smiled. "Just come back when you're having a better day." He chuckled softly. "I might just do that." As he turned to leave, he paused at the door, glancing back at her. She was already wiping down a table, her ponytail swinging as she moved. "She's different," Jack muttered to himself as he pushed the door open and stepped into the rain. Walking down the street, the hum of the diner faded behind him, but Emma's kindness lingered in his thoughts. For the first time in a long time, Jack felt a flicker of hope. The next day, the bell above the diner door jingled again, and Emma looked up from the counter. There he was, the same man from yesterday, this time without the rain-soaked coat. Jack Anderson walked in with a hesitant smile and slid into the same booth. "Back so soon?" Emma teased as she approached. "Well," Jack said, running a hand through his neatly combed hair, "you did say to come back on a better day, but, He shifted uncomfortably. "I might still owe you one." "Wallet trouble again?" Emma crossed her arms, pretending to consider him. "I don't know, you're starting to sound like a professional freeloader." Jack laughed, the sound surprising himself. "Guilty as charged," she grinned. "All right, but only because I don't want my turkey club to go to waste." From that day on, Jack became a regular. At least twice a week, he would walk into Millie's diner, always ordering the same thing, a turkey club and water. Each time, he'd offer a sheepish excuse about his wallet, and each time Emma would wave him off with a smile. During quiet moments, Jack watched Emma flit between tables, always smiling, always kind. He began to notice little details, the way she slipped an extra slice of pie to the elderly couple in the corner, how she knew every regular's name and favored order, the quiet sighs she gave when she thought no one was looking. One afternoon, he lingered longer than usual, waiting for the lunch rush to die down. When Emma finally took a breather, she slid into the booth across from him, wiping her hands on her apron. "You're not in a hurry today," she remarked. "Not really," Jack admitted. "Busy day for you?" She shrugged. "Every day's busy. Bills don't pay themselves, you know." Jack raised an eyebrow. "Bills?" Emma hesitated but felt comfortable with Jack's easy demeanor. "My dad passed a few years ago, left some debts behind, and my little brother's in college. Smart kid, studying to be a teacher. Someone's got to keep things afloat." Jack leaned back, genuinely impressed. "That's a lot to handle." "It's life," Emma said with a small smile. "You do what you have to." Jack left the diner that day with a new appreciation for Emma, her kindness. Wasn't just a surface-level trait, it ran deep, born of struggle and resilience. He thought of the people in his world, business partners, socialites, acquaintances, all of them consumed by wealth and appearances. Emma's sincerity was like a breath of fresh air. But Jack also felt a pang of guilt he was hiding a part of himself, afraid that revealing his wealth would change the way she saw him. One particularly slow afternoon, as Emma cleared his table, she paused and said with a teasing smile, "You're lucky on such a generous waitress one day you'll have to repay the favor." Jack chuckled, but her words struck a chord. What could he ever do to repay her kindness? As he watched her walk away, wiping down another table, a thought crossed his mind. What would Emma think if she knew the truth? Jack pushed the thought aside, but it lingered in the back of his mind. Long after he left the diner, Jack had become a fixture at the diner, arriving earlier each visit and staying longer than necessary. He no longer came just for the turkey club, but for the woman who served it with a warmth that seemed to brighten the entire room. One afternoon, the lunch rush was slow, and Emma took a rare moment to sit with Jack during her break. She sipped on a cup of coffee, her apron slightly wrinkled, but her smile intact. "You know," Jack began, leaning back in his seat, "you're always running around taking care of everyone else." "What do you do for yourself?" Emma blinked, caught off guard. "For myself." She laughed lightly between shifts here, covering bills and checking on my brother. "Not much time left for me." Jack tilted his head, studying her. "There must be something, a hobby, a dream." She hesitated, then shrugged. "I like to paint. I haven't had much time for it lately, but it's always been a dream of mine to open a little art studio someday. Nothing fancy, just a place where people could come and create." Jack's interest piqued. "That sounds incredible. Why haven't you pursued it?" Emma sighed, swirling the coffee in her mug. "Dreams don't pay the bills." Jack, besides, who has the money for something like that? He wanted to say, "I do." He wanted to tell her. Over the next few weeks, Jack found himself thinking about Emma more than he cared to admit. He could make her dream a reality with the snap of his fingers. But instead, he simply said, "Maybe someday." Maybe Emma agreed with a wistful smile. Her optimism, even in the face of her struggles, was something he admired deeply. The way she talked about her dreams, her family, her customers, it all drew him in like nothing else ever had. But with every deepening connection, his guilt grew. He was hiding a massive part of himself, and the longer he kept the secret, the harder it would be to reveal. One evening, as Jack left the diner, he overheard Emma and another waitress talking about the diner's leaky roof. "Millie's been trying to get it fixed for months," Emma said, "but repairs like that cost a fortune." That night, Jack made a few calls. By the end of the week, a repair crew had quietly come and gone, leaving the roof as good as new. The next time Jack walked into the diner, he found Emma in unusually high spirits. "You won't believe it," she said. Beaming as she approached his booth, "Someone fixed the roof." Jack fainted. "Surprise, really. That's great. Millie said she didn't hire anyone, so it must have been one of the regulars." "Whoever it was, they saved us." Jack smiled but felt a twinge of guilt. He wanted to tell her it was him, but worried she'd see it as a manipulation rather than a gesture of kindness. One sunny afternoon, Emma slid into Jack's booth during another slow shift. "You're here a lot," she teased. "Do you even work?" Jack laughed nervously. "Of course everyone's got to work, right? What do you do?" she asked casually. Jack hesitated, then gave his usual vague answer. "I'm in business." Emma raised an eyebrow. "Business, huh? That's awfully mysterious." "It's not that exciting," Jack said, quickly steering the conversation back to her art. "Speaking of exciting, have you painted anything lately?" Emma narrowed her eyes playfully. "But let it go. Not since last week, but maybe I'll find time soon." As she walked away to serve another table, Jack exhaled a quiet sigh of relief. But Emma's lingering glance told him she was more curious about him than she let on that evening. As Jack left the diner, he couldn't shake the feeling that Emma deserved the truth. But the thought of her reaction, the potential betrayal she might feel, kept him silent. For her part, Emma watched him go, her curiosity about the enigmatic man growing. Something about Jack didn't add up. And she couldn't help but wonder, who is he really? The morning sunlight streamed through the diner windows, casting a warm glow on the usual buzz of customers. Jack sat in his usual booth, sipping his coffee and waiting for. As Emma passed by with a tray of plates, she nodded toward him. "Be with you in a minute." "Jack." Jack smiled faintly, feeling the weight of the unspoken Emma to take her break. He had grown accustomed to these moments, craving the easy connection they shared. Truth he had been carrying for weeks. A new customer sat at the counter chatting with the waitress. As Jack flipped through his phone, he wasn't paying much attention until he heard his name. His real name. Stephen. The man said loud enough for the diner to hear. The tech genius. "You're the guy who started Horizon Systems, aren't you? What are you doing in a place like this?" Jack froze, his coffee cup halting midair. Emma, who had been clearing a nearby table, turned sharply at the sound of the name. The man continued, oblivious to the tension. "I've read all about you. You're a self-made millionaire. You've been on magazine covers. My brother works at one of your companies." Jack offered a tight smile, trying to downplay the recognition. "I like to keep a low profile," he said, glancing nervously toward Emma. Emma stood motionless, her tray clutched in her hands. Her face shifted from confusion to realization, then to hurt. The moment the customer left, Emma marched over to Jack's booth, her voice low but trembling with anger. "So," she began, her eyes narrowing. "All this time you've been lying to me." Jack looked up, guilt flashing across his face. "Emma, let me explain." "You're a millionaire," she interrupted, "a tech mogul, and you've been sitting here letting me pay for your lunches, pretending to be, what, broke? Normal?" "I wasn't pretending," Jack said, his voice calm but strained. "I just didn't tell you." Emma let out a bitter laugh. "Didn't tell me, Jack? I've been bending over backward to help you, thinking you couldn't afford a sandwich, and you're sitting on a fortune. Why?" Jack stood, trying to meet her gaze. "Because I wanted to know if someone could care about me for who I am, not what I have. My entire life, people have only seen the money, not me." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but her voice remained firm. And you thought it was okay to use my kindness as some kind of test to see if I was worthy. Do you even realize how humiliating that is?" Jack took a step closer, his tone pleading. "It wasn't about testing you, Emma. I didn't plan this. I didn't want to lose what we had." Emma shook her head, her voice breaking. "What we had, Jack? You built this on a lie. How can I believe anything you've said was real?" She turned and stormed out of the diner, leaving Jack standing alone, his chest tightening as the bell above the door jingled in her wake. Emma drove home, gripping the steering wheel tightly as tears streamed down her face. She replayed their conversations in her mind, the moments of laughter and connection now tainted by the revelation. Her generosity, her trust, had it all been a game to him? She had poured so much of herself into their friendship, believing Jack was just a regular guy who needed a break. Now she felt foolish and used. That evening, Emma sat in her tiny apartment, staring at the blank canvas she had planned to paint on. The joy she usually found in her art felt distant. Back in his penthouse, Jack stared out at the city skyline, his reflection in the glass a reminder of the man he didn't want to be. He replayed Emma's words, each one cutting deeper than the last. She was right. He had turned her kindness into a test, even if he hadn't meant to. He thought he could protect himself by hiding the truth, but instead he had hurt the one person who had seen him as more than his wealth. Jack picked up his phone, hesitating before dialing Emma's number. It rang once, twice, then went to voicemail. "Emma," he said quietly. "Please just let me explain. I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." He hung up, knowing it wasn't enough. Words wouldn't fix this. Days passed and Emma didn't return his calls. At the diner, her co-workers told him she had taken some time off. Jack sat in his usual booth, staring at the empty seat. The turkey club he'd ordered remained untouched. He had to find a way to make things right, but as the days stretched into nights, a gnawing doubt crept into his mind. What if he'd lost her for good? Jack stared at the piles of papers on his desk, but his mind wasn't on work. Emma's face, her hurt, and her words haunted him. He knew he couldn't leave things the way they were. She had given him something no one else ever had, genuine care, untainted by his wealth. That evening, Jack made a series of calls, first contacting a financial advisor. He arranged for Emma's late father's debts to be paid off. He didn't want her burdened by something she shouldn't have to carry alone. Next, he reached out to a foundation he'd quietly supported for years, setting up a scholarship for Emma's younger brother. He ensured that the paperwork would reflect the brother's merit and hard work, keeping his own involvement hidden. But it wasn't enough. Jack wanted Emma to know he believed in her dreams too. He remembered her mentioning painting during one of their diner conversations. She had brushed it off as impractical. He decided to gather the best art supplies he could find, brushes, canvases, paints, and have them delivered to the diner with a handwritten note. Emma returned to work a week later and was greeted by a delivery person holding a large box. Her co-workers crowded around as she opened it, revealing art supplies inside. There was no name on the package, just a note. "Emma, your kindness inspired me in ways I can never repay. Use these to follow your dreams. You deserve every success. A grateful friend." Emma read the note twice, her heart pounding. She suspected Jack immediately, but the thought made her emotions swirl. At home, Emma found a letter in her mailbox from the bank confirming that her family's debts had been cleared. Later that night, her brother called, excited about a scholarship offer he'd just received. Emma sat on her bed, holding the art supplies and the letter. She realized Jack had done all this not to win her over, but to support her and her family without expecting anything in return. The anger she had clung to began to dissolve, replaced by a mix of gratitude and longing. A week later, Emma received an invitation in the mail. It was elegantly designed, and the event location was listed as an art gallery in the city. The invitation simply said, "A celebration of talent, resilience, and beauty." Curiosity and hesitation wed within her, but ultimately Emma decided to go. When she arrived at the gallery, she was stunned. The walls were filled with her paintings, work she had sketched and stashed away at the diner, never imagining they would be displayed like this. The room was filled with people from her life, her brother, co-workers, regulars from the diner, and even neighbors. Jack stood at the center of it all, looking nervous but determined. When Emma approached him, Jack's breath caught. She looked both beautiful and guarded, her eyes searching his. "I didn't expect this," Emma said softly, gesturing to the gallery. Jack stepped closer, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I wanted to show you how extraordinary you are, Emma. You've been so busy giving to everyone else that you've forgotten what you deserve. I see it, and I believe in you." Emma looked around at the paintings, the faces of her loved ones, and finally back at Jack. "I'm sorry for hiding the truth," Jack continued. "I should have trusted you from the start, but everything I feel for you, every moment we've shared, it's all real. Please let me make this right." Emma's voice trembled. "It's not about the money, Jack. It's about trust. You tested me without my consent, and that hurt." Jack nodded. "I know, and I'll spend every day proving to you that I'll never make that mistake again." Emma's lips quirked in a small smile, though her eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You're good at grand gestures, Jack, but earning my trust again won't happen overnight." "I'm not going anywhere," Jack said earnestly. As the gallery buzzed around them, Emma looked up at Jack, her expression softening. "I forgive you," she said. "But don't think this means it's easy. You've got work to do." Jack smiled, relief washing over him. "Fair enough." As they stood together, a quiet understanding passed between them. For now, it was enough. The months that followed were a slow, deliberate process of rebuilding trust. Jack didn't push Emma for forgiveness. Instead, he showed her with actions how much he respected and cared for her. Jack made a habit of supporting Emma's dream in subtle but meaningful ways. He accompanied her to art supply stores, helped scout locations for a potential studio, and even encouraged her to apply for a grant from a local art council. Emma, initially hesitant, began to let her guard down. Jack's humility and patience won her over, bit by bit, and she started to see the sincerity behind his actions. One evening, as they painted together in Emma's makeshift home studio, she turned to him with a smile. "You're not bad at this," she teased, pointing to his clumsy brushstrokes. Jack laughed. "If this doesn't work out, maybe you can hire me as your assistant." Emma's smile softened. "I think we make a pretty good team." Months later, after countless hours of preparation, Emma's dream finally came to life. The art studio, a warm and inviting space filled with vibrant colors and natural light, opened its doors to the community. Jack stood by Emma's side as she greeted guests, her joy contagious. The event was a celebration of her talent and resilience, with friends, family, and even diner regulars coming to support her. As the evening wound down and the last guest began to leave, Jack asked Emma to stay behind for a moment. "What's this about?" she asked, curious but amused. Jack took her hand, guiding her to the center of the studio where one of her paintings hung. In front of it was a small table with a custom-painted wooden box. Jack picked up the box, his expression earnest and filled with emotion. "Emma," he began, "when I met you, I was lost in a world that felt shallow and meaningless. You showed me a kindness I didn't deserve and a love I never thought I'd find." He opened the box to reveal a simple yet elegant ring. designs a sunrise over a quiet lake symbolizing new beginnings. "You've given me more than I ever thought possible," Jack continued. "Will you let me spend the rest of my life showing you how much I love you?" Tears welled in Emma's eyes as she nodded, a smile breaking across her face. "Yes, but this time lunch is on me forever." Their wedding was held a few months later in the art studio that had become a symbol of their journey. The room was filled with laughter, love, and a blend of simplicity and elegance that reflected both Emma's humility and Jack's devotion. The diner staff sat alongside Jack's high-profile business associates, a testament to the unique way their worlds had blended. As Emma and Jack shared their first dance, the soft glow of the studio lights cast a warm hue around them. Emma leaned close and whispered, "You taught me that true wealth isn't in money, it's in kindness and love." Jack smiled, his voice low and full of affection, "And you showed me what it means to truly be seen." As the music played, Jack spun Emma gently, their laughter filling the room around them. The people who mattered most celebrated not just their love story, but the lessons it carried. That true connection transcends wealth, and that kindness can change lives. The sunrise over the lake hung prominently in the studio. Below it was a small plaque that read, "Inspire and be inspired," dedicated to the power of kindness. Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey of love, kindness, and second chances. Emma and Jack's story reminds us that true wealth isn't measured in dollars, but in the connections we make and the kindness we show to others. If this story touched your heart, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel, Soul Stirring Stories. For more inspiring tales that will warm your soul and brighten your day, turn on the notification bell so you never miss another story that reminds you of the power of love, compassion, and the beauty of human connection. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next story.